crab rangoon, lo mein, chicken fried rice. Okay, hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Compounder's Corner. My name is Amos, and in this podcast, we'll be going over the companies reporting their earnings this week, and we'll just be talking about the stock market in general. And to be fully transparent, before we get into it, brother, let me tell you, about an hour ago, we just got done eating at a Chinese buffet. Yes, believe it or not, even here, there's Chinese buffets. It doesn't matter where you are in the United States, big city, small country, town, there always happens to be a Chinese buffet. And the name is always like Beijing Spoon or Super China Buffet. And it always tastes the same, right? For like 10, $14, you can walk out with like 6 plates deep in your belly. So right about now, the food coma is hitting pretty hard. And not necessarily sleepy, I just feel relaxed. You know what I'm saying? Like that Thanksgiving dinner afterwards where you just kick it back, you watch the football game. So in a good way, I've got a food coma. So on a high level, what you see on your screen right now, here are the biggest takeaways from this week's earnings. We have almost every single major financial institution or bank reporting, including Goldman Sachs, Citi, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. To this day, I'm still a little salty. I went through like a 7 or 8 round interview to join JP Morgan for their Dallas office. They were fully booked. And so what was the point of even inviting me out to the final interview when they didn't even have a position available? In hindsight, my buddies in the company told me I should have applied for the New York office and I would have been a shoo-in. But when they had too many applicants and not enough spots, it was an easy way to just X me out of the applicant pool. But anyways, jumping on over to the other days, there's also BlackRock, there is PNC, M&T Bank, US Bancorp, ticker symbol USB, which under the current government and administration, I've been saying it on this channel for the past 2 years, right? There are certain sectors and industries that are going to be booming and others that are going to be suffering. The banks, they've been outperforming. And this also includes the regional banks. Do you remember the deep dive that I uploaded on the channel at the beginning of the year talking about regional banks? Every single one of them, they're up 20, 30, 50, 70%. And then we also have the data center infrastructure names such as TSM right here on Thursday, but also ASML on Wednesday. And then the streaming giant Netflix, they're going to also report their financial progress. And by the way, earnings, it's essentially what a publicly traded company has to do every 90 days to give line of sight and transparency to the shareholders or potential investors of how things are going, right? And I like it because every 3 months we get to get a glimpse of how the company is performing. Like you get to lift open the engine hood, take a look at, are they doing an oil change? Are they taking care of the car or not? And one thing that drives me up the wall is the current administration, they're trying to get rid of quarterly earnings releases and instead keep it at a cadence of like twice a year or even just once a year. And I just don't like that because when you invest in a company, you won't really have the updated statistics, financials, or the ratios, and you're kind of shooting in the dark, right? And I think the whole premise is they're trying to get rid of the volatility associated with the day-to-day swings. But, brother, I feel like having 90 days is not enough. I would rather see a touch point happen every month or, every 2 months. Because then we kind of get to see, like, real time, is this a good investment or not? Instead of getting blindsided 90 days down the road. So me personally, I really do like the 3-month cadence. I think it's perfect, right? It also gives us, the amateur retail investors, an opportunity to buy the dip. As I'm telling you this right now, in the past 7 years, some of the biggest short-term gains that I have made is by buying the dip from earnings. Like a company such as, Johnson & Johnson will say something that triggers pisses off some Wall Street analysts, and they're seeking out their safe space, or they're so mad they lower their price target, and J&J will dip like, I don't know. This is a pretty big company valuation, so for them to swing 10% in a single trading day is kind of severe. So maybe not J&J, but what's a better example? Like, for instance, TSM. For them to swing 10 to 15% on a single trading day, for me, I always bought the dip whenever I saw it being too crazy. And then I would sell it a few weeks down the road. So earnings, I like to, it's an opportunity for me to make a quick profit, but also if it's one of the companies like Abbott, for instance, that's a buy and hold, a long-term 5 to 20-year horizon kind of a thing, an ordeal, then I like to tune in and I like to pay attention to figure out if it is still a very high-quality company or not. Is it worth holding? Should I double down? But regardless, earnings, if you are a serious investor, it would behoove of you to pay attention to what's going on in the markets. That way you don't wake up on a random Thursday from sweating and thinking to yourself, I better check my portfolio. And it gets worse. Your armpits are now drowning in sweat because you're down negative 20%. You're like, what is going on? So by staying up to date, you get to kind of figure out what's happening in the markets. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and jump into each day of the week in a more dedicated format, starting with Monday. In hindsight, some of the more better examples that happened in the past 60 days, buying the violent swings from earnings, would be the cybersecurity stocks. Almost every single one of them, whenever they reported something that hinted even the tiny little bit of negativity, their stock went down like 20, 25% on the day they reported the earnings. And then if you take a look at what happened to them on the following weeks, they all pretty much recovered. Off the top of my head, I could think of Zscaler. They reported their earnings and they just, I think after they, right here, right? May 26th, prior to leaving Japan. I remember specifically monitoring them at the ramen shop. And I was like, okay, they're about 185. And then they reported their earnings and they just dropped like a rock to 126. But it was deeper than that because, hold on, let me see if I can pull it back 3 months. Let's see, May 26th. Okay, how about this? May 26th, let's hop on over to the history tab. Take a look at what was the lowest on May 26th. Scrolling on down right here, May 26th. Oh my gosh, I must be drunk or something. What is going on here? Zscaler, 3 months, May 27th. Okay, that was the problem. So May 27th, the lowest price was 125.66. So if you bought the dip at 125, I mean, I feel like you'd be a happy camper, no? In a span about a month and a half, 10.6% into the green. That's why, friends and family, that's why I pay attention to the earnings and buying the dip opportunities. Like Zscaler was one, another one was Rubrik, and there was also Palo Alto. I don't know what it was with the cybersecurity stocks selling off so severely whenever they reported their earnings this year, but definitely buying opportunities in hindsight. So if we hop on back over to the dedicated view, Monday, as you can see, there's only 4 companies. I would say nothing too crazy. So just to fill you in on my life then, I guess this is the opportunity. With the big move completed, in case you missed it, just moved from Japan to the US after living in Japan for 4 years. And now that we're back in the US, settling in, all the big purchase items are out of the way, thousands of dollars. So I started assessing the damage, and my goodness, it's a lot, right? And I have been a little stressed out about the financials. So instead of letting the situation eat away at my peace, that's the kind of guy that I am, right? I just bottle it up and I sit with it and I let it marinate and just eat me alive. And it's not really good, especially for the mental health. So seeing as how it's Sunday, we decided to go to church today. And I think afterwards we're like, hey, why don't we go to a Chinese buffet too? But anyways, I kid you not. While at the session, got an email notification, took a look at it. Man, you guys, you never fail to let me down. I got hit with some good news because one of y'all joined the Patreon community. And I just want to say it out right now. regardless of if you're a silent viewer, whether you leave comments, whether you click like, or if you're a part of the Patreon. I appreciate the support, no matter how big or small, from all of you. I appreciate it more than you know, because it really does help a small YouTuber like me. I'm not out here making 10, 20,000, 50,000 views, let alone dollars, right? I think in June, we barely hit like $80 in 30 days. But that's because June was so freaking busy with the moving. But anyways, hopping on over to Tuesday. Just coming from a heart of gratitude. I love you guys. So Tuesday, let's take a look at this. All of the major banks, I'll be honest with you, I think their valuations are a little fat. I don't think I would trim if I was invested in them, but definitely not in a position to be buying into them at all-time highs. I mean, the valuation is not too bad. I mean, the forward trading is a 14.7, but take a look at this. Fun fact about the banks, their trading multiples are usually low. So fiscal year 2019 is a 13, fiscal year 2020, I'm looking at the forward PE, so predicated upon their profits per share for the next fiscal year, because if you bake in this year's EPS, it blurs the line because they could do like one-time tax events, they can cook the books, accounting manipulation, numbers engineering to make things look better or worse. But by baking in next year's EPS, you can't do nothing funny. You can't alter the data, right? And usually the forecast for next year's EPS is pretty spot on, plus or minus 5% adjustment. But even by evaluating JP Morgan Chase, so their own forward PE in their history, I would say right now they're at a pretty fat valuation, right? I mean, the pandemic at a 13.5, you might be like, oh, that's because of the pandemic. But no, even the prior year was a 13.4. Even in 2021, 13.2. I think 2022, or was it 2023? That's when like the big debacle with the banks crashing and going belly up happened. So the banking and the financial institutions, they were sold off. As you can see, they lost 15.6% of their company valuation in 2020. So I think it was 2022. I forgot the name of that bank. It was like in San Francisco that did a lot of business with startups and tech companies in Silicon Valley. But anyways, right. So banks, I think they're really overvalued right now. But definitely if I bought into them in 2005, 2015, or even in 2025, I would just do nothing. I would just hold. Me personally, not trying to tell someone what to do, but I'm not invested in any banks. So it is what it is. Anything else on Tuesday that kind of stands out for you guys? Now, let's see. Fastenal Company. So on the image, it said that Conagra is going to be reporting, but I do not see Conagra. So I'm guessing instead of earnings, it's going to be like some kind of a situational update. So on the topic of Conagra, I do want to talk about them. Pull them up right here. I think it's ticker symbol CAG. $13.80. Forward PE is an 8.5. They operate in the consumer packaged goods space, meaning they sell foods that are all up and down the grocery aisles. And take a look at their stock performance, because it's kind of scary. Negative 32%, 5 years, negative 61%. If you look at the maximum timeline, they're $13, right? The last time they were $13 a share was literally when I was born in 1990, whatever, right? So they lost all of their gains from the pandemic era when they did reach a high of about $50-ish, $47 a share at $13.83. Now, being the parent company of grocery store frozen meal brands such as Banquet, Healthy Choice, Hungry Man, and Celeste, dude, I was practically raised on Celeste pizza, because I remember back in the 90s, it was 2 for $1. The personal pan pizzas, you throw that puppy in the microwave for about 2 minutes, and that's practically what I ate growing up. That and Chef Boyardee. But anyways, Conagra for me is kind of a soft topic, because yes, I did make some fat gains and I did make some money with some high quality names. But Conagra and some of the other food stocks, such as General Mills, Flowers Foods, and I think there was like one more. No, I walked away in the green with that one, PepsiCo. But anyways, for the most part with the food stocks, I sold them at a loss last year. Once I understood the landscape of private label brands just crushing them, right? Whether you go to a Walmart, Costco, Sam's Club, it's really petty. But like right next to the name brand stuff, you'll see their own store product at a fraction of the cost. So for instance, if you're getting, and it's not just food, by the way, it's making me think about my Procter & Gamble position in a different light as well. Like, for instance, like Crest toothpaste, right? Name brand, good stuff, $5 a tube. Right next to it, if you go to like a Walmart or Target, you'll see the off-brand for like $3.40 with a little bit more product in it. Now, for me, I would probably go with the name brand one, knowing that it has the higher quality ingredients, because I have some friends that work in the private brand manufacturing space, Treehouse Foods, for instance, and I know that the ingredients are not a one-for-one. Now, there are some labels and companies where they do make the exact same product for the private brand. They just slap on a different label. But when it comes to things like Dawn dish soap or Tide laundry detergent or toothpaste, it is not a one-for-one. I think the copycat brand will try their best to emulate it, but it's not going to have the same results. That's why, like, no matter how hard life gets, I think one household essential product that I will not cheap out on is Dawn dish soap. Because I learned quickly, like, you could buy the cheaper crap like Palmolive or Ajax or one of the others made by Colgate Palmolive, but you have to use twice as much product to get half the cleaning efficiency. Whereas with Dawn dish soap, even a tiny dot, a tiny drop, like the size of my eyes, that's enough to clean everything, right? So even though it costs more up front, you use less product to get the job done. So me personally, I will not cheap out on dish detergent. But with the food landscape, I'm bullish about the platform where the food and services are rendered versus the individual manufacturers, because they do not have an economic moat. Whereas the grocery stores, they can dictate who's going to be front and center on the shelves. They can even make their own private label brand for the cookies, for the chips, for the soda, whatever it is, and prioritize their own stuff. Why would they do that, Amos? Because there's higher margins? Because they were tired of paying the CPG tax, right? Because for the longest time, as a grocery store, you needed to do whatever they said because you didn't have a say in it, because you need to sell the food. So it's their way or the highway, but now they can fight back. And now they're getting really, really, really petty with it, right? Exact same style, flavor chips right next to the name brand one at a fraction of the cost. And they'll put the Frito-Lays all the way at the bottom, out of sight, out of mind. So for me, grocery store platforms, they own the economic moat. They get to decide what the consumer will buy with the pricing power plus the placement. So that changed the entire landscape for me. Speaking of which, in case you missed it, I'm back in the US. And I hinted at it a few times on the channel, but I'm in the best geographic region. Of course, I am joking, but it's known as the Deep South. I know people will say things like, "Oh, I'm from the South." It's like you probe deeper, and they're from North Carolina, or Florida, or Texas. I'm like, buddy, that ain't the Deep South. Because as a guy who lived all over the U.S., I can tell you there's levels to this, right? I'm in the Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama region. I think that is the Deep South. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, currently staying at an Airbnb for the next 5 months as the wife gets training for her next job. So kind of like in a limbo state. It was either that or paying extra to stay at a hotel. And I just feel like the hotel thing wouldn't make sense because a hotel is, the setup of a hotel is like, even if you have 2 beds, it's just one room and a bathroom. Whereas if you stay at an Airbnb, it's still kind of like a house, right? At a fraction of the cost, because if you stay multiple nights, you get a free stay for like, I forgot how it bakes out to be, or shakes out. It's like 13 days, you get 1 night free, or is it 7 days, 1 night free? Something like that. So it's cool and all, because there's more space than a hotel, but cooking at home, I didn't really think about the logistics of trying to make it feel like we're in a home. We're not really in a home, right? It's a challenge, because if we want to cook at home, we still need to buy all of the pots, the pans, the utensils, the seasoning, and everything. So, I had to think about it, and the conclusion is we defaulted to grabbing a bunch of frozen meals, like from Conagra, or unfortunately from Nestle, right? They pretty much have a monopoly in the frozen meals aisle, and also some fresh fruit like watermelon. Dude, that's one thing that I craved and I missed so much in Japan. Japan watermelon is about $45 for a small one with a lot of black seeds. In the US, if you have a Costco or a Sam's Club membership, I am not exaggerating, you can get a 25-pound seedless watermelon for $5 to $6 if it's on sale. So sign me up, right? And then, of course, we'll also be eating out on the stressful weekdays. Yeah, I feel like with money, we usually save a lot by cooking at home, but I just feel like buying all the pots and pans while staying in a place temporarily, I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. So, on the topic of this, last I heard, pay attention please, there's a parasite outbreak that's happening right now all across the US linked to fresh produce. And it's kind of scary, because I was looking into it, and apparently it lasts up to 30 days. So I'm talking about explosive diarrhea, vomiting, and all that good stuff, right? And I think that's unfortunate, because it's hitting the healthy eating people the hardest. Like, the people that deviate, or actually gravitate towards junk food, fries, hamburgers, pizza, they're not getting hit because it's linked to fresh produce, right? And I'm sad because I'm a pretty big salad guy. So if you're listening to this is why I said pay attention. You might want to pump the brakes on fresh greens, salads, kale, lettuce, and fresh fruits like blueberries. Apparently, shelled vegetables and fruit are still okay, like watermelon, bananas, avocados. And the reason why I'm warning you is because I just recovered from food poisoning. I lost 15 pounds. And it's a terrible feeling. And it only lasted like 4.5 to 5 days. I can't imagine 30 days. So if you haven't heard it before, you can pause this video, fact check me. It's happening right now. Just be careful, okay? Okay, so moving on over to Wednesday. We have ASML. They sell the equipment that produces and manufactures the semiconductor chips. Honestly, from what I'm seeing, reading, and hearing, I think they're going to have a record earnings, okay? If you don't think so, you're delusional. There's also Johnson & Johnson. And I was thinking about this the other day when I was showering. There's so many companies in the U.S. that have been riddled with scandals, setbacks, litigation. But for one reason or another, they're so high quality that they always find a way to rally to a new all-time high. Case in point, J&J, even if you just go back 20 years, I'm not saying you have to go 50 years, even in the past 20 years, they've been slapped in the face with the opioid addiction crisis, the baby powder causing ovarian cancer, and all other issues, right? And still, they're 64% into the green. And that's why when it comes to high quality blue chip household names, honestly, buying a dip, you almost can't go wrong. Almost. Sometimes you can, like if we're talking about Tesla. Tesla, gosh, for me, I know for some people it's a touchy subject because y'all are in love with Elon Musk, but the financials and the fundamentals don't align with the stock price movement. Sometimes it just moves based on hype or based on a tweet, right? But when we talk about Amazon, Google, or I guess in this case like J&J or any other blue chip household names like in the Fortune 20, Fortune 50, S&P maybe up to the top 100, you almost can't go wrong, right? I think there's maybe one or two rotten eggs in there, but to buy the dip on a blue chip company, pretty good deal. And that's why when people talk about, oh, what are the best stocks for a beginner? Honestly, stay away from speculation, stay away from hype, stay away from meme stocks, stay away from companies that are burning cash and are unprofitable. Instead, that's why I think the best beginner stocks are quote unquote the best stocks, because they're good, high quality companies with robust economic moat that keeps away the competition. And even despite setbacks, they always find a way to rally to new all-time highs. So for me, the best stocks, that's what beginners should be looking at. I don't know if that makes sense or not. So throwing some more examples out there, right? Like Microsoft, we also have Nvidia, we also have ASML, Progressive, just by looking at this old list right here, right? Oh, so there's Conagra on Wednesday. My fault. I guess we talked prematurely about Tuesday. That was my fault. But yeah, sticking to the big name companies, you almost can't go wrong. But what else do we have? We have, let's see, Elevance. Speaking of which, man, I got so much heat for talking about, oh, I went big into United Health. And I really did last year, right? When all of the health insurance stocks went on a sell-off to, what is that, in the summer of 2025. Do you remember I uploaded like 10 videos? I doubled down. I just kept buying more. And in the grand scheme of things, it all worked out. Obviously, I sold, and that's why I'm so thankful for investing, right? The United Health gains and the profits, that's what allowed me to buy the minivan. So yeah, I'm happy. Like, would I want to invest in United Health right now at $4.24? No. Like, if you didn't buy into them when they were $220 a share, or right here during that dip at $250 a share, I don't know what you were thinking. Now you want to buy into United Health at $430 a share? You missed the boat. You had to buy into the fear when everyone kept saying, oh, it's a crappy company. They're so evil. They're fill in the blank. And I tuned out the noise, and I just looked straight at the data and the numbers, and what I saw was a very high-quality compounder with a free cash flow situation that was desirable, and they're trading a multiple at the time. I think their forward PE was like an 11, for crying out loud. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense. I think the market is misvaluing United Health. And so I bought United Health, I bought Centene, and I bought Humana, and I sold all of them. Pretty happy camper. Health insurance, I don't think is the play anymore. That ship has sailed. But there are other opportunities. There's always other opportunities in the market, right? Right underneath Elevance, we have Centus, ticker symbol CTAS. Let's take a look at them, okay? So they're basically in the business of renting out workplace essentials to almost all the major companies out here. Yes, including your beloved company. They probably partner with Cintas, especially the sanitation department. Yeah. So when we talk about like bathroom soap, toilet paper, doormats, first aid kits, and most importantly, the uniforms a factory worker would wear. It's a very boring business model, but friends and family, I am not exaggerating when I say that they print cash. So what you see on your screen right now is their revenue situation. Hold on, let me see if I can change the data source from fiscal. I don't like fiscal AI. I prefer S&P Global, and it's not because I'm just invested in them, but I just prefer the way the bar graph is a little wider. See their revenue growth, right? 2016, $4.7 billion to what it is now of $11 billion. In 10 years, it more than doubled their gross sales. Like, when I described that company, did it not sound so boring? You'd be like, what? At best, a 1% growth in their revenue year over year? Try double digits, right? Take a look at their bottom line. Let me get a sip of water. Give me a second. Okay, 2016, $693 million. I'm assuming in 2017 there was an acquisition or a divestiture. Something happened where it hurt their profits. But $693 million, and now it's $1.9 billion of profits. So case in point, really high quality business, just based on the P&L, dividend profile, a 15% dividend growth rate, 45 years of growing their dividends. So think about past 45 years, all the scandals, all of the financial fear, all of the it's over now, sell everything moments. They still grew their dividend, right? So when people talk about, oh, dividends are not guaranteed. Yeah, dividends aren't guaranteed with cigar butt stinky companies, but high quality dividend compounders with cheese like Cintas, they also belong in that blue chip conversation earlier. Microsoft, Apple, these companies will never cut their dividend. They might. I don't want to go on record by saying something stupid like that. They could, but the probability and the statistics of a high quality compounder cutting their dividend, it's almost impossible. But when we talk about like a company that was already shaky financials, a company that was unprofitable, a company that was hit with scandals going into a recession, of course they're going to cut their dividend, right? Like there's levels to this game. High quality compounders, their dividend profile is almost as safe as going to sleep with a shower cap on, right? If you don't want the tooth fairy to pull out your hair while you're sleeping, it will protect it. I don't know. But anyways, if you take a look at what's been happening to Cintas lately, it's pretty rough. Because if I click year to date, -4%. But if I do okay, whatever. Year to date, -4.5%. And they're falling, to their standards, falling hard because I think back in, I forget, one of their earnings releases, they announced that they were going to buy and acquire a rival known as UniFirst. So judging solely based off of their name, their business model, identical to Cintas. They do exactly the same thing, just on a smaller scale. And the market did not want that whatsoever. So why is it a big deal? Why are they selling off? Because if you take a look at the past 5 years, they were just soaring. And after that announcement, they've been selling off. Number one, I think it's because of regulatory risk and the question of the company culture being at risk. Because when you buy out a company, believe it or not, integrating them into your system and aligning their workflow to what you do is actually pretty hard. I know this because one of my tasks on the strategy team was integrating one of the small fish that we acquired, and the way they did stuff, from my understanding, they butt heads a lot with the team that was sent down there to help train them. And that's why more often than not, companies, they don't want to deal with that, and they'll just do severance layoffs across the board and just keep the high valuable employees and just start over. Because retraining and trying to, I guess, change the way they do stuff to the way that the bigger fish does stuff, it's more of a hassle than you would realize. And believe it or not, it was actually a pretty fun project for me. But anyways, and I think another reason their stock is hurting is for like the 20,000th time, right? The current administration announced that the ceasefire with Iran is over. And so we're back to pew-pewing each other. It's just blatantly annoying at this point. But anyways, so another reason why their stock is hurting is the fuel prices to make all of their deliveries. Their overhead costs to do business just went up, right? Because they have trucks that are making routes every single day to deliver products, supplies, and to make those, the logistics got more expensive. But historically, friends and family, this is one of the better blue chip names to invest in. So me personally, take a look at that, right? 75,000% into the grain. A company that supplies the janitorial department in your company is crushing it. 75,000%. And that's why sometimes the boring names are the better names to invest in. And I'll stand by that hill. The flashy names that go up 1,000% in a single calendar year, they can go down 2,000% the next calendar year. I'm not joking, right? The flashy names are flashy for a reason. They usually have a cyclical tailwind that helps them momentarily for the next 3 to 9 months. But when it's over, it's over. When the lights are out, you're going to be crying. But with a boring business model that's pretty resilient to AI, they're literally, look at this, they're in the business of renting out uniforms, first aid kits, toilet paper, doormats, mops. I mean, I don't see AI hurting Cintas. Matter of fact, I'd probably say it's AI resistant. I like Cintas. So this is a company that I'm going to be eyeballing. I personally want to invest in them. Another really boring one that's just been crushing it is Casey's General Stores. On surface level, they just operate gas stations, kind of like a Wawa if you're in the West Coast, kind of like a Buc-ee's if you're in the South, or what's another really good gas station chain? Anyways, whatever. Casey's, I think they predominantly operate in the Midwest. So like if you're from Illinois, Minnesota, one of those regions, you're probably familiar with them. The reason why they've been crushing it, I mean, look at this, past 1 year, 56% in the green, past 5 years, 300% in the green, is because they've been really aggressively pushing their fast food arm of the business. So people will go to fill up gas in their car and they'll hop in to get a pizza, to get a hamburger, to get fried chicken, to get donuts. It's brilliant, right? Because when you think about McDonald's or Burger King, the access point for a customer to go there is just to be hungry. But for someone to go to a Casey's, it happens every 3 days or every week, depending on your cadence or how frequent you fill up your gas. So you got to go there anyways, but if they also sell food, that increases the touch points with the customer. So I really like Casey's. Now, would I invest into them right now? No, I would like a pullback. But of a really high quality, boring name that nobody talks about, okay? So let's go back on over to Wednesday and see if we have anything else before we move on to Thursday. United Airlines, M&T Bank, Conagra. I think we said a lot about Conagra. Okay, let's jump on over to Thursday. And yeah, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. We have TSM. Look, I think TSM is good, right? They pretty much have a monopoly when it comes to developing the state-of-the-art, the greatest chips. From my understanding, the other ones, they cannot build out the latest and the greatest, but they can still build out the ones that are like second class. When I say they, I'm talking about like Intel or some of the other manufacturing hubs. But if you want the latest and the greatest chips made by NVIDIA, only TSM. Having said that, I mean, if you take a look at TSM, I mean, it's a pretty good company, 87% single trading year, 260%. Me personally, I'd be more interested in Global Foundries. Let me show you. They used to belong to AMD. And then they did a spinoff, which blows my mind. They should have kept it because they would have the same kind of power, or I guess a one-stop shop like Intel, right? Designing the chips, but also making the chips. Now AMD can't make their own chips. But anyways, ticker symbol GFS. I would be more interested in this one or Texas Instruments because I feel like their full potential has not been reached. I know, okay, they don't make the same chips as TSM. They make the lesser quality stuff that go inside of like cars, gadgets, radios, laptops, stuff like that. Not for the hot, like the full throttle data centers. But I think the upside potential for Global Foundries, I think it's a lot higher. Potential, right? Meaning it might not pan out. Reason being is that the American government has been doubling down and investing into the semiconductor domestic infrastructure, like going gung-ho. And that's why Intel has been soaring. And that's why Texas Instruments has been soaring. And that's why I think Global Foundries will also see similar numbers to TSM. 5 years for 46% in the green, that's not good enough, right? I would rather go with Texas Instruments than TSM as well, off of that same agenda. Meaning, I feel like TSM, I think a lot has been baked in already, priced in already. But for Global Foundries and Texas Instruments, I feel like it's still very early. Now, speaking of early, in case you missed it, on Friday, let me see if I can pull it up, SK Hynix debuted on the US stock market, specifically on the NASDAQ. I think they debuted at like 140 something a share, depicted right there, 149. It closed out the day at 168, and after hours 172. Take a look at this, okay? Their forward trading multiple is a 5.7. Now, Micron, Seagate, SanDisk, I said it before, right? I don't feel comfortable buying into them while they're at their all-time highs because you don't know when that pullback is going to happen, right? Like when we talk about buying into the quote-unquote market at all-time highs, I feel more comfortable doing that because it's diversified across 500 or even 5,000 names. But when it comes to individual stocks buying at the all-time highs, for me, that risk to reward ratio is just too much for me to fathom, right? Like to buy into Micron when they already had a 700% run up in the past 365 days, do you know what I'm saying? It's just too much risk. Because when we talk about potential upside, I feel like in the case of Micron, the downside, the probability is a lot higher than the upside if you buy into them at 1,200 a share, or in this case, 979 a share. Having said that, their forward trading multiple is a 6.8. Now keep in mind, memory, SSD, RAM, all of that. That's the bottleneck with the supply chain and the data center build out. Meaning these guys have pricing power beyond belief right now. The reason why the data centers have to pay them, and when I say data centers, I mean the hyperscalers, in this case, the Microsoft, the Amazon, the Google, Meta, the reason why they're paying them is because they get to set the prices. If you want it, you got to pay it, buddy. In the past, you can get a 4 terabyte SSD for like, what, $250, maybe $300? Now it's almost $1,000. But for the data center ones, it's on a whole different landscape and scale. I'm pretty sure they're price gouging. And that's why they're making record profits. It's supply and demand. Now, semiconductor, the industry as a whole is cyclical. Right now, if you're a new investor, you probably think I'm full of crap. But if you look at the history of semiconductors, it comes in waves, right? You buy all the chips and equipment that you need up front or for the next few quarters, and then you pump the brakes. It's not something that you do consistently every single day, every single week. Right now, it's a different story because of the build out, right? The Mag 7 already dedicated themselves to saying, hey, we're spending $100 billion, $70 billion, whatever billion dollars. So they're going to see it through. But I think the bigger question is, will they continue to spend $100 billion every single year, right? So that begs the question. Because the moment their foot is let off the gas pedal, I guarantee, well, I don't want to say stuff like that, right? That's hyperbole. In my personal thinking, Micron, SanDisk, they're going to crash 40-50% in a single week. The moment the hyperscalers say, you know what, we're satisfied. I don't think we need to aggressively build out data centers anymore. But that commentary is still kind of icky because it seems like most names are doubling down because they're scared of falling behind. And that's why the SSD, memory, and the RAM players are soaring. Having said that, their valuations for the numbers that they're executing, it is pretty low. Now, having said that, me personally, SK Hynix, how do I feel about them? As a Korean that lived in Korea, it's one of the major conglomerates, right? SK Hynix belongs to the SK family. There's also Samsung, there's also LG, there's also Hyundai. So if you think about it in the US terms, basically it's the Apple, the Microsoft, the Berkshire Hathaway, the Google. Does that make sense? It's a giant company with a ton of different products under their umbrella. From my research, 60% of the market share of the high bandwidth memory belongs to SK Hynix. The other 20% is Samsung, and then I think the rest is like Micron and the others. So these guys are the biggest players, the ones that have the biggest gains on the table, the ones that have them. Hold on, right now it's in Korean won. Let me switch it to US dollars. So $88 billion in gross sales. That is just absolutely ridiculous. And this is what I mean by when I say that semiconductors and all of that is very cyclical. Prior to the data center build out, look at it. There's years of spending and then there's years of pulling back. There's years of spending and then there's a year of pulling back. We're in the years of spending. Now, I'm not trying to say that I can tell the future, but darn it, from my understanding of cyclical stocks, including oil and gas, including real estate, including semiconductors, a pullback is pending. And that's why I'm saying, me personally, I would not want to buy at the top. But if I had to, if somebody was holding a hammer to my left nut and was like, you got to invest in one or I'm going to smash it, I'd be like, dude, well, first of all, please don't do that, right? I have a daughter, okay? I've got a wife, I've got 2 dogs. Don't smash my nut. But anyways, I would go with SK Hynix, and here is why. When you think about the other names, they're all American. Seagate, SanDisk, Micron, and whatever. With SK Hynix being a Korean company that tends to be pretty neutral and on the good side of the trade partnership across the world, unlike us, I mean, we severed our relationships with Europe, and we're pissing off almost everybody in the world. Please don't blame me, okay? I'm an American, but okay, okay, whatever. So with SK Hynix, there's no friction, there's no red tape, there's no threats of tariffs being thrown in your face like Micron or SanDisk, right? So me personally, I would go with the neutral, because I always say it on this channel, a business that operates as a neutral, like you can have your own personal values, a moral compass, political beliefs, but please don't let that be front and center of your business. So me personally, whenever I see a company that crushes it in their operations, but is neutral in their political alignment, especially not making enemies and increasing random ass tariffs across the board, for me, I want a company like Walmart. I want a company like Costco. I want a company that cares about the business rather than the politics. So SK Hynix, I would go with. Now, would I want to buy into them right now at an IPO? No. Case in point, if we jump on over to another IPO that was hot, that was sexy, that had everyone salivating very recently, Space Exploration Technologies. This is another company owned by Elon Musk. He also owns The Boring Company. He also owns Neuralink or whatever, like that chip that goes into your brain. That one I actually do like. I think that's value add to society, especially people with ALS or other disease or illnesses that just make you your brain disabled, and to be able to utilize your brain again. I think what he's doing, I like. Obviously with Tesla, I'm not a fan of Tesla. SpaceX, I'm kind of skeptical of. What's another one that he has? Starlink, I really do like. Satellite-based internet connectivity, but also other stuff. And that belongs under SpaceX. But they also do some other endeavors. So, reason why I'd be scared to go near the SK Hynix IPO is because if you take a look at SpaceX, after the IPO, I think there's a lot of FOMO that fuels the market. Obviously, the amateurs are the ones that get suckered into this. I think the institutional investors are the ones that are selling right here, because there needs to be a trade from their hand to your hand for their stock price to go right here, right? They sold out at a $201 a share. Wait, what? 52-week range was $225. So they debuted on June the 12th, reached the high of $225 on June the 16th. They sold it. I guarantee you there are people right now, even probably, well, I don't want to offend you or step on any toes. As a reminder, you should clip your toenails. They're gross. At $225 a share, and they watched their position go down to $145. That's why I'm still learning that lesson to apply a stop loss. I regret not doing that with a few of my positions. And basically a stop loss is if your position goes down by like 5%, it automatically sells it to stop the bleeding. But anyways, with fresh IPOs, there are risks like this, right? You'll see all of the FOMO fuel them up in the next week or two, all-time highs. And then you'll see people selling out of their the RSUs or their equity grants that they've been holding on to for years. Actually, a buddy of mine that graduated from the military academy with me, he works at SpaceX, and he told me the culture there is rough. And I always assumed that Amazon had the hardest culture, like cutthroat. Apparently, SpaceX is pretty rough. And I also have a friend that's an engineer at Tesla. He told me some stories. Another Mag 7 that has a really rough culture is Meta. But on the opposite end of that spectrum, I also have a few military academy friends that work at Microsoft. And they say the best work-life balance, best culture ever. Same with Google. Apple is in the middle of the road. I've heard some horror stories, but also some like I love it here stories. So SpaceX, rough working culture, but I guess, I don't know. I think it's better than having a too relaxed of a climate where there's a lot of people that don't contribute or don't help out, but they still get promoted ahead of you. That would drive me up a wall. So I can see the benefits of having a very aggressively competitive culture, but as a worker, I feel like it'd be very stressful. Never knowing when you're about to be put on a plan. You better improve or we're going to fire you. Here's HR to tell you that we have 90 days to get it done. Like, the stress of that. I think at Amazon it's called like a PIP. But anyways, I digress. I don't even know why we started talking about that. But anyways, with SpaceX, I think this is a classic story of if you buy into an IPO, if you would rather just wait a couple weeks, maybe in a couple months, if you really like SpaceX, you could probably pick them up at $100 a share in the not too distant future. But then again, we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens. This might be the bottom, and they might go back up to 200 a share. I don't think they're going to go back up to 200, but anything is a possibility. It just goes to show with IPOs, just be careful, okay? I think that's all I was trying to get at. I'm sorry that was long-winded. Just be careful. Also on Thursday, we have a Netflix, ticker symbol NFLX. Now, if you look at the recent net income, which are the profits the company made after deducting all the accounting overhead costs, like the payroll, which is right here, SG&A, such as the R&D. This is probably all the film production, marketing crap that they do. You bake all that in, what's left over? $13 billion. And it looks incredible, right? Like if you look at it visually depicted, you're like, oh my goodness. Okay, let me take a water break. 1 second. But if you read between the lines, you would know that the increase from 10.9 billion to 13.3 billion is because their net income, it was artificially pumped by that massive breakup fee from the Warner Bros. Discovery acquisition that fell through. Do you remember that craziness that happened earlier in the year? And then eventually Netflix was like, you know what, we're not going to do it anymore. And then Paramount was like, hey, we get to do it now. They got paid, I think it was like $2.5 billion in cash. So that's what helped bump and boost their net income. And that's why I told you earlier, right? When you factor in the forward PE ratio, for me, I feel like that is a more clean number to analyze than the trailing 12 months PE, because it doesn't bake in anything crazy. One-time tax events, one-time cash settlements, because it's not directly a result of the operational performance, right? It's a result of a one-time thing. So if you bake that in, you're not gonna expect a 10% growth from a number that is a one-time benefit, right? That's why me personally, I prefer the forward PE. But having said that long-winded statement, their revenue growth is their revenue growth is real. There's nothing crazy or skeptical or fake about this. This is real and it looks good. I mean, a 16% growth year over year. I think 2022 and 2023, rough years. single-digit growth, and I think that was reflected in their stock price just getting hammered in 2022. They dropped all the way down to freaking like $15 a share. But if you bought that dip right there, my gosh, would you be a happy camper, right? But yeah, the past fiscal year has been a really rough situation. But if you pause and you reflect, I think the fear surrounding Netflix, I think it makes sense, right? It's that the growth story is over and their only path forward is to increase the subscription prices. And that's the only lever that they have again and again. And yes, if you look on social media, there's a lot of vocally disgruntled customers. And the fact that Netflix went on record by saying, hey, we're no longer going to post our subscription numbers, but instead, like other publicly traded companies, we're only going to disclose our financial performance. So it doesn't matter if we have less subscribers as long as they're paying more, is what they're insinuating. Wall Street was like, no, we hate that. Less transparency, bad. And honestly, I agree with that. Whenever a company tries to be less transparent, I hate that. I hate it, because they're always hiding something. If you have nothing to hide, you'll be transparent. You would show the full budget and the breakdown. Then again, I understand the doom and the gloom. I honestly think there's merit to it, okay? But to me, at this point in 2026, I mean, the fact that there's even a slogan, Netflix and chill, right? Whenever a business or a service becomes a slogan, like let me Google that instead of let me search that. Or hey, let's... or what's another one? Maybe that's the wrong word, slogan. But anyways, it's like, oh, let's Uber there. Instead of saying, let's grab a ride share, right, from Lyft or Uber or from public transportation. People will say, let's Uber there. I get bullish, right? The fact that Netflix and chill is synonymous with the idea of relaxing after you get home from school or work, kicking it back by watching the 10th episode of some random ass show. So for me, I think of Netflix as a household essential, almost like a utility that people can't do without. I say that because other people might jump back and forth with the other streaming services like Hulu, Disney, or Peacock, right? But with Netflix, it's a household staple. That's almost in every American home, just like an Amazon Prime account. Sure, you can cancel your Prime account and sign back up, but you know what I mean? If it's something that you use all the time and it has better offerings than the other competitors, why go through all those hoops and loops? Speaking of which, I have Walmart Plus, which is their subscription service. And the reason why we did that is instead of getting a second car, with the Walmart Plus subscription, you get free deliveries, including groceries, regardless of a minimum order. So baking in the math, I was like, dude, that makes too much sense. Why buy another car and that would add insurance, registration, and gas costs when I could just get a Walmart Plus subscription for like, I don't know, it was like $9 a month, unlimited deliveries. It pays for itself practically in the second delivery. But anyways, Amazon Prime, you should be worried because that for the longest time, people kept thinking like that was their biggest downfall is the overhead cost of running brick and mortar stores. But to me, I always saw that as a strength because that's what Amazon lacks. The ability for a customer to go in and feel a product in their hands. Because sometimes the emotions associated with that could be enough to put it in the cart and scan and pay for it. Whereas with Amazon, it's so easy to just say, nah, or X out of the browser. But with Walmart, they can utilize their stores as a distribution point in the supply chain. Do you hear where I'm coming from, right? Not only does it act as a place that you can go in to buy stuff, but you can also ship stuff from it like a fulfillment center. With Amazon, they don't have that infrastructure. They have a fulfillment online inventory, correct. But their brick and mortar is basically Whole Foods, whereas Walmart, plus their integration of the Walmart neighborhood grocery stores, that's what I'm saying. Like Walmart is another one, right? A blue chip household name that I would buy on the dip. I wouldn't want to buy them at a freaking 38 forward PE. I think that's too fat. Okay, but definitely one that I would want to buy. Another one that I've been seeing a lot in this rural ass town that I live in, Dollar General is like practically everywhere. And there's also Dollar General grocery stores. And as I alluded to earlier, I'm very bullish on grocery stores because they own the platform in which food is sold. Okay, I really like Dollar General. I feel like they're a much better valuation and a I can't say investment because I think Walmart has so much more going for them. But I think Dollar General, at this point, not a bad idea. As a matter of fact, I've been eyeballing them, just not at 118. I'll give you guys a freebie, okay? Usually it's only for the Patreon. Me personally, based on the technical analysis indicators and my math, I'm going to start dollar cost averaging at about 80 a share. So $79.99 or less. I really like Dollar General. I really like Walmart, but just not at this price or at this valuation. So the fact that Walmart has physical retail stores, I think it's a strength. I always disagreed with people who thought that Amazon was going to cause Walmart to tumble and fall. You don't understand that with the logistics of grocery, at this point in time, Walmart owns more than 50% of the grocery market share in the US. Do you hear that? So remember how we talked about earlier with Casey's General Stores. Oil is the touch point that gets the customers to come back every 3 to 7 days, correct? And from the gas filling sessions, they buy the fast food in the convenience store. With Walmart, you go there for your groceries and then you end up buying random crap in the electronics section, or in the entertainment section, or in the clothing section. And groceries, based on my understanding, it's about a once-a-week ordeal. Here's the thing. In Japan, it's an everyday ordeal. And it bothered me so much because every single day at the grocery store, it would be jam-packed, sardines in a can, because everybody grocery shops every day. Like in the US, we buy bulk so we can cook it out for the rest of the week, right? Go to Costco, deal with the headaches of the shopping cart smacking into the back of your calf, you turning around and smiling, saying, oh, it's okay. Dealing with that mess every week, once a week. Japan, you deal with that every day. But then again, it's like a cultural difference. They would rather do it every day so that everything is fresh. Whereas here in the US, we have to compromise and buy stuff frozen or freezing, which I don't think is a bad deal. I read a scientific paper like 10 years ago, and they found out that fruits and veggies that are flash frozen as soon as they're picked actually retain their vitamins and nutrients at a higher threshold than the fresh produce that you see that expire faster. So it is what it is. I prefer the American way. Do it once a week. Why go every single day? Why bake in 30 minutes every day at the grocery store when you could do it once a week at 45 minutes? Just my thinking. I'm a weird guy. So anyways, Netflix, it's a household essential. I really like. And not only that, Netflix, I think in the past 6 months, they've been experimenting with it. They've been rolling out ads for a lower priced tier. Dude, I've been a Netflix subscriber since the early 2000s when it used to be a DVD mail-in service. And to see their growth and the changes that they have made since then, it's really crazy. Netflix is a direct reason why Blockbuster is gone. Now, based on what I just said about Walmart, I think one of the most brilliant things that Netflix can do, and this is coming from a former strategy guy, is to start up pop-up shops in heavily dense urban areas like New York City, Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, of literal Netflix stores where you can go in, get a recommendation from a human, snacks, a place to hang out, maybe even an integrated cafe in there. Honestly, if they were to do something like that, my tits would be so freaking bullish. I'm telling you right now, I'd be so freaking bullish. It doesn't even matter about the overhead costs of operating. You really think Apple operates their stupid little stores because it's profitable for them? No. That experience, the where you can go in and hold an iPhone in your hand, that might be enough for you to pull the trigger. I really like that. Same with Netflix. If they were to do that, I would be so freaking excited for them. And besides, with Netflix, to be honest, all it takes is just one set of good news for their stock to jump back up, right? They're 70 some dollars a share. Just one good news, and they'll be $100 a share easily. So, yeah. Blockbuster, dude, I miss it so much. We're getting to a point where I think we're craving in-person experiences more so than everything being digitalized and online. Now, maybe that's my age showing, but if I were to join the Netflix staff, dude, I would propose that idea so hard. I'd be like, fire me right now, or we're doing this. Trust me, this is going to increase our everything. Because once the folks can go in there and buy merch, right? Stranger Things, Squid Games, and all the other crap, the intellectual property of just Netflix. Yeah. But anyways, let's jump on back over to Thursday. There was something else that I wanted to say, but I don't know. The food coma's hitting me hard. I forgot. So let's just go back over here. Also on Thursday, we have Abbott Laboratories, ticker symbol ABT, and that is a horrendous sight, friends and family. Past 1 year, negative 29%. Can you imagine that? Almost 30% in the red in 365 days. Now, Abbott Laboratories, it's a diversified medical tech company. I mean, I see them as a medical device business, and that's because they make nutritional drinks, protein shakes, and generic drugs. And I say generic because they don't spend billions of dollars R&D or drug pipelines for the next blockbuster drug like Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson would. Instead, they make the generic crap, like the generic painkillers, generic allergy medicine, and for like emerging markets such as like India, Bangladesh, stuff like that. And their stock, if you take a look at the history of it, I mean, it is crazy, 25,000%. But in the past 5 years, they were trending in a green direction. But in the past 1 year, they're going downwards because the market, it's pricing in less fatties walking around. When I say fatties, I mean people that are obese due to Ozempic, GLP-1 drugs that curb all appetite, all desires to eat, smoke, drink. Another primary reason why as to the alcohol stock suffering, but I also think it's a cultural shift. Tobacco is actually getting more popular because of nicotine, like Zyn, like pouches, smokeless tobacco products. But with alcohol, people under the age of 30, they're drinking less. They just don't see the appeal behind it. And then number two, because of the GLP-1 drugs, that, like 15% of Americans are on right now? I bet that number is much higher. But anyways, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6 Americans, they also just don't have the desire to eat candy, drink, or smoke. So alcohol stocks in the short term, bearish, but long term, they'll probably be okay. But anyways, because there's less fatties walking around, it means less heart surgeries, less heart accessories required. And obviously, Abbott's in the business of selling medical equipment for stuff like that. So it's hurting. And there's also the Chinese government cracking down on corruption and hospital spending, which means the Abbott sales reps, fun fact, almost every Division I athlete that doesn't want a conventional corporate job, they always end up going into medical device sales, which I always thought was kind of funny. And then, of course, there's the health insurance companies. One of the variables for them booming is the markets are pricing in a Democrat sweep across the board, which means regulation should be on their side again. But then number two, the health insurance companies in the short term, they have gotten the blessing from the current administration to deny more claims to protect their margins. Because their reimbursement rate came in a lot lower than expected. And they're like, dude, we can't operate our business like this. We're going to go belly up. And so I think one thing led to another, and they're allowed to deny more claims to at least protect themselves and kicking people off coverage, like just leaving some territories and markets altogether. But it makes sense, right? Because health insurance companies are still publicly traded, and you can't just force them to operate at a loss. That would be a nonprofit. But for-profit and publicly traded doesn't make sense. And because they got the blessing to deny more claims, that includes elective surgeries, right? Like if you know 9 months down the road you should get a open heart surgery or whatever, the health insurance companies might be like, you know what? Even though it's scheduled in advance, this elective surgery, what do we try again for the 20th time? Some cheaper options like physical therapy or medications, as that will cost the health insurance company like what? Maybe $1,000 versus $10,000. So yeah, if you can't tell, the U.S. healthcare system, absolutely absurd, jacked up, and we need reform. I'm always vocal about that because it's a mess. It's a hot mess. Okay, I think our healthcare clinicians, physicians, med techs, radio techs, you guys are professional. You're doing the right thing. But I think the pricing structure, the insurance debacle, and all this crap, getting approval prior, it's just convoluted. We need to simplify it and bring the cost down. So I think it makes sense as to why Abbott is crashing. There's a lot going against them, but that does not change the fact that the U.S. population is aging. And people are living longer than before. Like, during the American Revolution, I think it was common for someone to croak at age 39, just because you had diarrhea. Today you get diarrhea, they'll slap you on some IV, you'll be on your way. You got a headache, take some Tylenol, you're good to go. Back in the day, even a simple headache could take you out. We're living longer, right? Which means the body starts breaking down. You're gonna need a hip replacement, a knee replacement. Doesn't matter if you're fat. Stuff like cartilage in your bones just naturally start breaking down. And that's why I'm a huge advocate of working out. So I think resistance training really does help your bones to stay fortified, alongside with proper nutrition. High protein, good calcium, good vitamin D, working out. If you skip all of that, I mean, okay, open heart surgeries, hip replacements, kneecap replacements, it's just the reality, right? That's going to require medical intervention. So, thinking about Abbott, thinking about Stryker, thinking about Boston Scientific, I'm bullish on all of them long term. I don't give a crap what they say in the short term. Even if they do take a small hit because of the Ozempic ramifications long term, I don't think you guys understand. The U.S. population, there's going to be more and more people on Medicare because they're elderly and senior citizens than you can imagine. So, I'm bullish. Now, having said that, if they dip below $88 a share, I'm going to be picking up more. I'm going to pick up more and make it a bigger position. I truly believe in it. I do. This is not some stupid smoke and mirror startup, unprofitable crap. This is probably the highest quality in the medical device landscape. My number 2 would be Medtronic. And then after that, it's kind of a crapshoot. Everyone else is kind of tied for third place, including Boston, including Stryker, including the other names. They're all pretty good. Having said that, Thursday, we got some more banks, some financial stuff. And then Friday, oh, okay, yeah, there's the travelers companies. They operate in the insurance landscape. And I think we also skipped Progressive. I think it's a good time for me to touch upon that. They've been soaring in the last few weeks. If you take a look at their stock price pattern, I mean, you can see it, right? Beginning of the year, we're talking about like 280-ish, and now they're 338. And that's because, as you all know, as a direct consequence of the fuel prices going up because of the Iran conflict, inflation has been sticky, and the federal interest rate at this point, it's looking like a hike. I don't even think they're going to cut it. Because inflation is, if they cut it while inflation is this high, I feel like we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot. Now, I'm not an economist, but I did take undergraduate economic classes plus graduate level economic classes. I just feel like putting a Band-Aid on an open sore is like a temporary fix, right? If you want to do it right, we're going to have to hold steady on the interest rate or even hike it, which means financial institutions like BDCs, insurance, REITs, not REITs, but insurance companies, BDCs, they should be crushing it. And it's going to be really good for their business because their capital and float earns a bigger bigger interest. So if you hop on over to the balance sheet, for insurance companies, they keep their cash right here on their total investments, and that's basically their float. So the amount of premiums that you pay go into a pool, and in that pool, they grow their cash by investing in, I think, like bonds, CDs, or like T-bills and stuff like that, right? Super safe, 100% reliability. No, it's not going to 10x their money, but if the interest rates are high, then they can earn more money on their float. Hopefully that makes sense. So insurance companies, thriving. Me personally, I think it's a temporary tailwind. It's the exact same line of thought as to why I don't want to go near Micron or SanDisk right now. It's a temporary tailwind. I mean, obviously that could change, and everyone's backyard is a data center heading into 2050, 2060. There's data centers sprouting up every single day, and I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But I also think that this CapEx narrative is doing such a damage to Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and all of them that it would behoove them to reevaluate what kind of software updates can we make to optimize the infrastructure that we have instead of spending $100 billion every single 12 months. That's my line of thought. I could be wrong. Once again, maybe every national park in the US will be a data center, which means Micron, SanDisk, SK Hynix will soar to new all-time highs. I could be wrong, but I do think it's a temporary tailwind, what they're seeing. Just like with the insurance stocks. So as much as I love the insurance stocks, the reason why I really liked them is because I started researching a lot about Warren Buffett, and he really liked insurance, but I never really liked it. But once I started looking into it, I'm like, okay, I see the light. I see why he likes it. But as of right now, I wouldn't want to invest in insurance. I would wait for the interest rate cuts, and when that happens, their stock price is going to absolutely crater beyond belief. And when that happens, I will buy the dip. But yeah, anyways, I appreciate you guys for hanging out with me. Good luck in the stock market. Good luck. I love you. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you really soon. See ya.